Well, good morning and welcome to Hudson Institute. I'm Ken Weinstein, the Japan chair here at Hudson, and want to welcome you and also want to welcome our extraordinarily distinguished panel this morning to analyze today's topic, growing expectations for the U.S.-Japan alliance. As we all know, in December 2022, Japan introduced its three security documents that laid out Tokyo's most ambitious plan since the creation of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces in 1954. In the documents, Tokyo promised to increase military spending to 2% of GDP and to develop counterstrike capabilities to bolster deterrence. These documents, along with Japan's defense agreements with Australia and the United Kingdom, the dramatic improvement in Japan-South Korea relations, illustrates in part Tokyo's dynamic thinking about its security environment, the critical importance of partnerships to security, and also to improving defense and technological capabilities at a time of growing instability in Northeast Asia, whether from the growing North Korea threat to and its renewed alliance with Russia, or from the PRC, especially in the months leading up to the presidential inauguration of William Lai in Taiwan. And of course, our conversation today is occurring on the backdrop of the forthcoming state visit of Prime Minister Kishida a month from now here to Washington. To assess Japan's ambitious defense transformation, its need for integrated and comprehensive approaches to security and opportunities for deeper cooperation with partnership and allies, as I mentioned earlier, we have three distinguished speakers. Our first speaker, Shigeru Kitamura, needs no introduction here at Hudson Institute. I'll introduce the three speakers first, and then they'll each come to the podium. He is the president and CEO of Kitamura Economic Security Incorporated. That is an almost redundant title, since in Japan, his name is synonymous with economic security, since he is a man who championed the idea and brought it to the forefront when he served as Secretary General of the National Security Secretariat under Prime Ministers Abe and Suga. He, of course, served for nearly a decade as Director of Cabinet Intelligence beforehand. He is a graduate of the University of Tokyo and of the École Nationale d'Administration in France, and he has been decorated by the governments of Taiwan, the United States, and France and Australia as well, two countries that actually didn't get along at the time they decorated him, but nonetheless, they both felt in deep debt to him. Our second speaker is here in uniform, is Brigadier General James B. Wellens. He is the Assistant Deputy Commandant of the Marines for programs focused on programs and resources. He is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis. He did his basic training in the neighborhood here at Quantico, and in his 31-year career as a Marine, since his training at Quantico, he has served as a naval aviator. He has been deployed in expeditionary units in both Europe and the Middle East, and he commanded the 1st Marine Corps F-35 Battalion. His role today is as Assistant Deputy Commandant for Programs at Marine Corps Headquarters, as I mentioned earlier. Both his service in Europe, the Middle East, as well as the Indo-Pacific guides him in his work today. Most notably for us, he served as Assistant Wing Commander for the 1st Marine Aircraft Wing in Okinawa, Japan, and also as Deputy Commander of U.S. Forces, Japan. Our last speaker will be Sugio Takahashi. He is head of the Defense Policy Research Office at the National Institute for Defense Strategy in Tokyo. He was director of the Policy Simulation Office at NIDS prior to this, and deputy director of the Office of Strategic Planning of the JMOD from 2008 to 2016. And as deputy director, he played a very critical role in drafting the National Defense Program guidelines and the guidelines for U.S.-Japan defense cooperation. Takahashi Sensei received his degrees from Waseda University and from the George Washington University. He has published extensively in the area of nuclear strategy, the U.S.-Japan alliance, and East Asian regional security, including The End of Nuclear Forgetting, Nuclear War Coming Back, a book he published already in 2019, ahead of the curve of the current discussions. And let me note, before Kitamura Sensei takes the podium here, let me note his recent book, The Secret History of Counterintelligence, which was published in December. This is the third of his books, and they make a very handsome set on any bookshelf here in Washington. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome my dear friend Shigeru Kitamura to the podium here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I start?
You can sit if you like.
Okay, good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to make a speech on the US-Japan alliance. The Japan-US war of 1941 to 1945 was a fierce battle for hegemony in the Pacific Ocean. Both mobilized all their forces in various parts of the Pacific. The status quo challenger at the time was the Empire of Japan. It is fair to say the US-Japan Security Treaty in 1951 was born out of a profound reflection of this tragic war and played as a mechanism to bring peace and stability to the Indo-Pacific. Nowadays, in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and the western half of the Pacific Ocean, there are consecutive attempts to change the status quo by force. The new challenger appeared and is growing as fast as ever expected. Japan and the US must confront these threats. The history of the Japan-US Security Treaty has been one of efforts to move the relationship from victor and defeated to equals. The 1960 treaty revision under Prime Minister Nobusuke Kishi confronted significant opposition from public opinion in Japan. At that time, the Cold War structure was inherent internally. However, it was a historic step toward progress in the alliance. Since then, more than 60 years have passed, and through successive revision of the Japan-US guidelines for defense cooperation, the military complementarity between the US forces and Japan self-defense forces has been strengthened. In particular, the Peace and Security Legislation enacted by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe enables the exercise of partial collective self-defense, and the 2015 guidelines concurrent with the Peace and Security Legislation can become a milestone in this direction. In addition, under Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, first, the enactment of the Economic Security Promotion Act. Second, the decision on 3 security-related documents introducing a counterstrike capability. And third, the increase of defense spending to 2% of GDP. They will no doubt further enhance the alliance between Japan and the US. We can achieve peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region merely by strengthening military power. an open framework formed by allies and like-minded countries that share democratic values will also contribute to regional peace and security. The free and open Indo-Pacific was born from this conception. Now, it has become tangible entity through Quad, CPTPP, and AUKUS. It's not easy to separate security and economy in the modern world. The leading concept of the world economy is transforming significantly from globalization to de-risking. Against this backdrop, it is essential that the G7 Hiroshima issued the leader's statement on economic resilience and economic security. In this domain, Japan and the US must cooperate closely in the following. First, rulemaking that does not tolerate market distorting and unfair trade practices. Second, building up value chains, especially in advanced technology fields such as semiconductor, advanced magnets, and big-scale batteries. Third, countering economic coercion, which took place frequently in this region. Japan-US Research and Development Cooperation in the field of the advanced technology is also essential. A joint Japan-US Research and Development framework already exists in advanced semiconductor and quantum technology. These fields are closely related to security technologies. To promote such research and development further, the Japanese government has just submitted the bill on security clearance to the Diet. By enacting this law, both private sectors can cooperate more smoothly in AI, cybersecurity, electromagnetic, hypersonic vehicle, unmanned underwater vehicle, etc. Thank you very much for your listening.
Excellent.
Good morning, and it's a privilege for me to be here to speak to you this morning. I appreciate the introduction, kind introduction from Dr. Weinstein and the hospitality here today. It's also an honor for me to be on this panel with these distinguished participants, and both of whom I worked with in some capacity during my time in Japan. So I'm here today again as a representative of Headquarters Marine Corps. I'm no longer serving in Japan, but as I go through my remarks, I will certainly reflect on the years that I spent there as the Deputy Commander at USFJ for 3 years and the Assistant Wing Commander at 1st Marine Air Wing. And the first thing I'll say is that I really miss being in Japan, and I'm very jealous of my counterparts here on the panel who are going to return to Japan today, and they will be arriving as the cherry blossoms are about to bloom. And we have cherry blossoms here in the Tidal Basin and a few other places, but there's nothing like what you see in Japan, and we really miss that. We miss the food, we miss the baseball, we miss the culture. I had the good fortune while I was there I did not meet Otani-san, unfortunately, but I did get a chance to meet Murakami-san, who was the first Major League Baseball player to come, or first Japanese player to play in the major leagues for the San Francisco Giants, and that was a great honor. There's 3 things I want to talk about this morning. First of all, the importance of the U.S.-Japan alliance, and then second, the Marine Corps' role in that, and then third, what we have observed as an impressive expansion of partnerships between Japan and other like-minded nations and the role that we play in that. And when I think about the importance of the U.S.-Japan alliance, the first person that comes to mind is Mike Mansfield. And Mike Mansfield is somebody, former ambassador to Japan, very familiar to everybody here in the room, and you probably heard his commonly quoted statement that the U.S.-Japan relationship is the most important bilateral relationship in the world, bar none. That's what he said back in the early 1980s. I think it's even more true today. The importance of the Japan relationship just cannot be overstated or exaggerated. What you might not know about Mike Mansfield, who was the longest serving ambassador to Japan, the longest serving majority leader in the Senate, what you might not know is he was also a private in the United States Marine Corps. And if you go to Arlington Cemetery to visit his grave, which I encourage you to do, you'll see that on his gravestone it says nothing about his time as an ambassador, as a U.S. senator, as a statesman. All it says is Michael Mansfield, private, U.S. Marine Corps. And he was noted for his humility. He was noted for his attention to the people that work for him, to having a sense of service of others and putting the needs of others ahead of his own. In that respect, he's the prototypical Marine, and I also think a great model for an alliance manager, which requires an unselfish approach to trying to solve very difficult problems. So when we think about the importance of the U.S.-Japan alliance, which is truly the cornerstone of peace and security in the Indo-Pacific, I saw in the last 4 years the deterioration of the security environment in the Eastern Pacific, East China Sea, the adversaries that we face there, the challenges that we face there, what we call the pacing threat that is there, is apparent to us every single day through the actions of those who, as Kitamura-san said, would seek to use force to change the status quo. It's apparent, it's evident, it's clear, and it highlights why it's so important that we strengthen and continue to support in every way this long-standing, 70 years old alliance that we have with Japan, which is so important as we think about having the right level of integrated deterrence to ensure that the adversaries that we face in the Indo-Pacific do not seek to further change the status quo through the use of force. I will not regurgitate what Kitamura-san said about the advances over the past few years, but while I was at U.S. Forces Japan, I was able to watch and in some cases participate with my colleagues in the development of strengthened bilateral relationships between us and Japan, the development of the 3 strategic documents, and we were certainly pleased and impressed to see the increased investment of resources that Japan has made in all domains of its military and security space, and we continue to participate in that. The Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps, has been in Japan for a long time, and the Marine Corps presence, most notably in Okinawa, but also on the mainland, is something that contributes to that deterrent and integrated deterrence that Indo-PACOM provides to Japan and to the region. The Marine Corps has got long-standing history there, and we continue to expand the role that we play in the East China Sea, in Japan, in terms of collaboration with the Japanese self-defense forces and contributing to ensuring that we provide the right level of deterrent, but also that we provide the right level of training and readiness. And Japan is not a place that is where it's easy to train. Japan is a heavily populated area. It's a country that's much smaller than the United States, and so historically it's been difficult for us to do the type of realistic live fire training that's available in places like Arizona and California. But what we've seen over the past few years is an impressive move by the Japanese self-defense forces to expand the locations where we train and to increase the realism of the training that we do. In the Marine Corps, we always say that you train like you fight. The training that you do needs to be realistic, it needs to be interoperable, it needs to represent the best capabilities that we have. Historically, in many cases, we've had to leave Japan with our forces that are stationed there to do the type of training that's necessary to maintain the readiness that we need. And what we found over the past few years as a result of some innovative approaches to training is that we are able to do a much greater percentage of the training requirements that we have in Japan, and we are also able to do that with our Japanese partners. And so, whereas in the past we might have had U.S. training that was done independently by, in my service, Marines, now we are doing exercises such as Resolute Dragon, Iron Fist, which used to be in California and is now in Japan. We are doing additional exercises all throughout Japan. We're using technology like live virtual constructive training to enable us to expand the type of training that we do there in Japan. So the partnership between the Marine Corps and the Japanese Self-Defense Forces has never been closer. The locations where we are able to train the type of capabilities that we have, the Air Force has MQ-9 there, where you're able to collaborate in Japan with that capability and similar capabilities. Those are things that are a tangible signal of the increasing commitment that we see from our Japanese partners to ensuring that we have the right level of deterrent to preserve peace in the Indo-Pacific. And finally, the expansion of the collaboration and partnership with allies and partners. When I was in Japan, we had the Queen Elizabeth CSG-21 that came, and we saw a Japanese participation with Japanese ships and U.S. aircraft carriers and the Queen Elizabeth participation in exercises there. Since then, we have seen exercises like ARC-21, where we had European partners, NATO partners like France. We've had Australia participate in recent exercises such as Keen Edge, which is an annual exercise which we do there. And so the role and the presence of allies and partners is greater than it's ever been. And when we think about what we refer to as the pacing threat that we face on a day-to-day basis, if we think about it as a U.S. versus the pacing threat, it can be a daunting thing to consider. But when we expand and consider the role of our allies and partners and their presence in that deterrent package, it completely changes the equation. And the presence of allies and partners in exercises that are realistic, that demonstrate the best capabilities that we have, again, is something that has been a tremendous step ahead over the past few years. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I look forward to your questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you, General. Professor Takahashi.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Suyo Takahashi from National Institute for Defense Studies, and it is my very great honor to be here. I want to say the great thanks to Hudson Institute to bring me to this city, which is my second favorite city in the world. The first favorite is Tokyo, but yeah, I used to live here for 2 years, so I always welcome every opportunity to come here. And I need to start my remarks with very standard template, which is universally used in the world, regardless of which country you are. That is, my view in my remarks are all the private one, which doesn't represent any thought of the MOD and needs or in Japanese government. So I hate to say this kind of template, but I realize all countries' government officials say, start with these words. And so my topic is Japanese defense strategy. And I have three things to say. One is budget, the second, capability, and third, organization. And they start with budget. With the three strategic documents last December, issued in last December, as Weinstein-san introduced, at the same time, the governments say Japan will pay 43 trillion yen for coming 5 years. And so So with a plan to set this increase, this defense budget increase, about 43 trillion yen for 5 years period, that means 2023 to 2027, and that means the expenditure-based budget has increased significantly. I know, what do you mean expenditure-based budget? The defense budget has multiple definitions, and the expenditure-based budget means more like outrays-based budget in Japanese, American budget analysis was. And that means from compared to 2022 and 2023, the budget was increased to 6.82 trillion yen. That means 26.3 increase compared to 2022. And this increase of budget in annual basis was the biggest rise in our defense budget after the end of the World War II. So that means the first time in the Japanese self-defense force history. And toward 2024, the budget will increase more. That in terms of percentage, that is 16.5%, and the amount of money, 7.95 trillion yen. So this is very significant increase. And the amount of money allocated for contract, a contract is a kind of payment for multi-years contract. I mean, that kind of money especially related to new project up to 2024 budget is already actually 42% of 43 trillion yen for coming 5 years. So many programs has been already launched from this fiscal year or next fiscal year. And as you can see, so we are making steady progress of initiatives to fundamentally reinforce defense capabilities, like this, as this number shows. And second, capabilities. Of course, there are many capabilities in defense side, but I focus on IAMD side and the counterforce capabilities, which attract attention from outside government, outside Japan audiences. And as a part of an initiative to strengthen deterrence against missile threat, and which missile threat is one of the biggest challenge for the alliance, and Japan decided to develop counterstrike capabilities. And this capability is a part of IAMD. So this is not just about to strike, but this is one of the efforts to reduce ballistic missile threat, combining with missile defense. And these counterstrike capabilities also will be employed utilizing standoff defense capabilities, which means long-range missiles. And using domestic-produced missiles as basis, Japan moves forward with research and development of various kinds of standoff missiles, such as surface-based ones, ships-launched ones, or aircraft-launched ones. And also it includes hypersonic glide vehicle, and with some efforts to extend the range. And at the same time, Japan is in the process of procuring a made in US standoff missile, including Tomahawks. And in Tomahawks, this is what really has Tomahawks will be introduced as a first capabilities, first piece of the capabilities. So Japan is accelerated its procurement, and there's instruction under instruction of the Defense Minister Kihara, and with US support, Japan will deploy both Tomahawks and upgraded range extended Type 12 surface-to-ship missiles in 2025. So in summary, Japan is going to possess counter-strike capabilities in 2025. And also, Japan will continue to strengthen the missile defense capabilities. And so the decision to initiate Japan-US joint development of GPI, that means Glide Phase Interceptor, is to respond to hypersonic weapons by regional countries that will contribute to building strategic defense capabilities. So Japan will continue to enhance not only strike capabilities, not only counter-strike capabilities, but also missile defense capabilities, both of which should enhance deterrent by Japan and deterrent of US-Japan alliance. And third, organization. That's a JJOC, we are saying JJOC. It used to be said as a permanent joint headquarters. And now it is said JSDF Joint Operation Command. And the acronym is JJOC without any hyphen. And so that will be established, supposed to be established by the end of March 2025 as a permanent joint headquarters, which is able to act as a unified command for all self-defense forces and in permanent basis. And the commander of JJOC will be the Foster General in a rank equivalent to the Chief of Staff of each service. And it will have, in initial phase, it will have 240 personnel, and the SDF plans to increase the number to 300 in the future. And the JJOC has three aims. First, to establish a joint operational posture capable of conducting cross-domain operations. The second, so JJOC also runs the cyber operation and the space operation. And second, to streamline the process of seamless response in accordance with the change in situation. I mean, that means, a change in situation means the situation from the peacetime, gray zone, and conventional conflict. So like this, to smoothly deal with this kind of conflict spectrum, SDF decided to develop the JJOC. And third, to ensure closer coordination with the US Indo-PACOM and the other US headquarters, or including Joint Task Force. And with newly established JJOC, it will be urgent task for us to establish procedures for coordination between JJOC and US counterparts. So this requires efforts from US side. So because this is to enhance the deterrent of the alliance. So we hope to work together with US counterparts. So these kind of efforts to strengthen deterrence and the response capability of Japanese self-defense force and the US-Japan alliance is very urgently necessary because of the worsening security situation in the region. And again, the Japanese side considers the current security environment is most serious after the end of the World War II, not after the end of the Cold War, but the end of the World War II. So we want to maintain the peace and security in the region. We need to make the effort which was committed in the 3 documents last December, and we hope to enhance the cooperation with the cooperation with the United States in the alliance context. Thank you. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much. Great. We've had 3 really fascinating presentations. First, looking at strategy. Second, more looking at operational questions within the context of strategy. And here we have the last one sort of operating at the intersection of both. And I want to throw out some questions to our panel, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions. Let me first turn to Kitamura Sensei. Let me ask you. You've seen Prime Minister Kishida, I think, achieve things. It's fair to say that Prime Minister Abe only would have dreamt of achieving, in terms of there's been a fundamental shift in strategic culture in Japan in the last few years. You talked about COVID. Obviously the notion that a Taiwan contingency is a Japan contingency. Ukraine has changed some of the fundamentals. How much of one of the most remarkable things to me was the transfer of the Patriots to the United States from Japan, which would have been unthinkable just a short time ago. How do you gauge the shift in strategic culture in Japan and what this means for Japan's ability to achieve to become an equal partner of the United States, as you spoke of.
First of all, on the occasion of the funeral of the former Prime Minister Abe, Kishida declared he will succeed to the security policy line constructed by the former Prime Minister Abe. I mentioned three big policies done by the Prime Minister Kishida. It's so remarkable because, for example, the Economic Security Promotion Act. It's not always easy, but this enactment was encouraged. Encouraged is not a good expression by the Ukraine warfare. Actually, Japanese population is so sensitive about the safety and the security, and they are afraid of the fear of the warfare. Such kind of national sentiment encouraged the Prime Minister Kishida's security policy. Before the nomination of the Prime Minister, Mr. Kishida is called rather dovish or so, but actually the situation is completely changed, and his power of the implementation is so good for the security. I mentioned about the G7 summit in Hiroshima. It was so successful because he can decide the three security-related documents. It gives him some kind of the power of the initiative, even among the G7 leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask the general, one of the critical things the Marines have been stepping up on, as have all the U.S. Armed Forces, is the critical role of both of our allies and our partners in security, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, where this network of alliances, a lattice, as our colleague Jim Pristup described it, in language that's since been borrowed by the Secretary of State, among others, has become increasingly important. I'm wondering, as you look at both your time in Japan and now your time here at Marine Corps headquarters, in terms of Japanese partnership capabilities compared to other partnerships, what do you see as the strengths of Japan, and in particular, Japan's ability to reach out to other partners? We've seen the growing Japanese-Philippines relationship and the like.
So, I mean, it's hard to overstate the progress that we've seen over the past few years in terms of JSDF willingness to participate in bilateral and multilateral training events, and the willingness to increase the complexity of the training and the exercises and the operations that we are doing. And so, I don't want to provide I hesitate to provide an assessment of how Japan is doing. What I'll just say is they're co-equal partners with us when we think about training with partners that we've traditionally trained with, like the UK and Australia, and when Japan joins us in an exercise or an event, it's a seamless transition. We're constantly working on becoming more interoperable, and so that we can fight side by side using the same technology and the same means of communication and that sort of thing. That's always a challenge. It's a challenge within the U.S. Joint Force, and it's an even bigger challenge when we're doing integrated training with partners and allies. But we see in that space, in all domains, willingness to do more, and where we find problems and where we find friction points, to find solutions.
Great, thank you. Professor Takahashi, let me ask you, one of you talked about the joint development of the glide phase interceptor. You talked about the JJOC. One of the critical issues in U.S.-Japan defense cooperation has been the long time challenge in Japan regarding information security, regarding cybersecurity. From your perspective, how much progress has been made? How much more progress needs to be made?
how to say, information security needs to think maybe two ways. One is institutional aspect. The other is actual, actual management of the information. And about the security, about the institutional side, Abe government passed a law for the special designated Secret Protection Act, and under that cover, the secret is protected. And the question is maybe how to say the actual how to protect the secret, and maybe that is more of the issue of the trust and the accumulation of the successful protection. And this is a kind of never-ending journey. And so just as economic security related security clearance, Japan will again accumulate many all possible measures to develop the trust within the alliance. But that's not a short way, but we need to continue to work very hard. And I have no short answer of that.
Great, thank you. Okay, why don't we open it up to questions from the audience? Please identify yourself, and please be sure to be brief and to ask a question. Great. And if you're a journalist, also just identify yourself. Great, thank you.
Hi, thank you very much, all of you. My name is Yusuke Shimizu. I work for the World Bank, but I used to work for the Japanese Foreign Ministry. My question is with regards to the role of the private sector in economic security. Looking at the situation in Ukraine, I've seen that companies like Microsoft, Google, et cetera, have the platforms, the systems in place where all the battles are, a lot of the battles are taking place. I wonder within the U.S.-Japan alliance writ large, whether there's a scope for greater coordination with companies like Google or NEC, et cetera.
Great. You want to take that? Yeah, sure.
I think the situation in Ukraine is a little bit different, I think. Because during the warfare, I visited Davos for the pavilion, the Palantir. I met the CEO there. I realized the U.S. private company almost restructuring all the system of Ukraine. I think the concept is completely different. But instead, such kind of U.S. private company play a very important role to intercept the cyber attack from Russia. At the same time, in cooperating with the U.S. Cyber Command and the Special Task Force, the EU, to detect the malware in the critical infrastructure of the Ukraine. In discussing with the CEO of the Palantir, if our government is totally agree with the introduction of system, they can do that immediately. But I think that deployment of the U.S. system in Ukraine is a little bit different from the inside of the United States. It's some kind of the experimental aspect to do. In order to develop the technology, maybe we must try the maximum capability of the system. In Ukraine, I think U.S. enterprise can do that. We never compared with the situation in China, but it's rather amazing for me. And in anyhow, the result is all. I think the situation in Ukraine is so successful for the private and public cooperation for the cybersecurity. Thank you.
Comments at all?
I'll just say that this explosion in technological advancements in generative AI and machine learning, we have to be able to find ways to harness those capabilities and use them to improve and optimize the systems that we have. And that requires public-private partnership and probably a larger degree of interaction and engagement with the private sector, which we're doing in a number of ways.
Looking at the war in Ukraine, especially cyber and space domain, there are so many areas of the, the private sector's role is very significant. So that means the modern war requires to not necessarily integrate, but to cooperate with, the military need to cooperate with private sectors in some sense. I don't think the private sector will fight in the front line, but for the information security or for the cyber security or for how to utilize the space, the role of the private sector will be not significant. So in a sense, the relation needs to be fundamentally rethinked, looking at the, reflecting the lessons from the situation in Ukraine.
Next question here.
Hi, thank you. My name is Yuko Mukai from Japanese newspaper Yomiuri Shimbun and also a non-resident fellow of Project 2049. My question is about the incident in February in the Taiwanese island called Jinmen, and there was a fisherman accidentally dead, and it reminds me of the incident happened close to Senkaku 2010. What is your perspective, the relevance between two incidents, and is this a challenge by mainland China to change the status quo in Taiwan Strait? Thank you.
I think we can have some similar perspective over this incident with Senkaku. PRC is always utilizing the incident or accident to change the status quo. It is called salami tactics. In regarding the incident in Taiwan, I imagine easily the situation of Senkaku. After the so-called nationalization, the PRC has changed totally the deployment of the Coast Guard and the PLA Navy. It's some kind of the attempt to change the status quo. But in anyhow, we must observe attentively such kind of the small escalation of the situation and how we can deter or stop such kind of attempt done by the PRC.
Just all I'll say is I can't speak to that specific incident, but we spend a lot of time thinking about gray zone tactics and the use of ambiguous events such as the ones that you described to try to create challenges and dilemmas that could potentially be problematic for us. And so that's something that we consider and think about a lot.
This is my very private view that the Taiwan Strait issue will be resolved peacefully. So Chinese side would, I hope Chinese side try to employ all the peaceful measures to resolve the situation. So in a sense, the recent events is not necessarily welcomed, I think, by international community, I think.
My name is Horikoshi of Kyodo News, Japan's newswire service. I want to Kitamura-san about the possibility of establishment of intelligence organization in Japan. So there has long been a discussion whether Japan should have powerful intelligence organization, but Japan has not had it so far. What is your opinion why Japan can't have public momentum to establish intelligence organization?
It's a very good question. It's closely related to the occupation policy by the United States. During the occupation, the U.S. Supreme Commander destroyed totally all the intelligence organization, normally the counterintelligence organization. But my opinion, it's a prescribe the form of the state of Japan itself. And concerning the function of the state, we need 4 elements: diplomacy, intelligence, military, economy. One says there is no intelligence organization of Japan. It's one aspect is yes. There is no one specialized intelligence organization doesn't exist. But other ministry, like Minister of the Foreign Affairs, Minister of the Defense, National Police Agency, and the Agency of the Security and Public Safety and the Intelligence Agency also. Maybe each organization play a role for gathering the information. And in the Prime Minister's office, we have the Cabinet Intelligence Research Office, which integrates all the information and intelligence gathered by the members of the intelligence community. That's a way of the actual Japanese government style, I think. Very liberal and very, I observe from time to time the building of the intelligence organization. For example, the NIS of the ROK, very huge, and the building the ISI of Pakistan, very huge also. Of course, I visited the building of the CIA. CIA is very exaggerated, but the building itself is rather modest. And the MI6 is the same thing, a little bit bigger than the police station of the Shibuya, I think. It's a little bit, it's to some extent joke, but in anyhow, even the intelligence organization must, adopt itself the regime of each state, I think. Actual situation of the Intelligence Committee Japan is not sufficient, but each organization make lots of effort to gather the intelligence and the information to contribute to the decision making of the policy maker and the Prime Minister. Thank you.
Anybody else care to comment?
And I mentioned about, from time to time, there is no CIA of Japan. But it's not necessary we have the CIA because the US has a 9, the carrier strike group and 11 nuclear power, aircraft carrier. They have the possibility, they have the potentiality to do the power projection to the all over the world. In Japan, it's not necessary, I think. Therefore, just scale and the capability of the intelligence committee is going with the power of the state itself. It's my opinion.
Do we have time for one more question? Oh, yeah, second row.
Hey, good morning. Tommy Peacher from Forterra. We've seen a shift in some areas of the U.S. defense industry from reliance on traditional primes to venture-backed defense tech startups. And as Japan and the U.S. Bilateral engagement and cooperation continues to increase, how do you see the Japanese Ministry of Defense leveraging some of these same technologies coming out of Silicon Valley and other defense tech startups?
Great question. And one of the, defense industry or defense procurement or defense R&D policies for long term, it requires many long time. You need to watch the technological situation, to predict the future, and develop the concepts for new technology, and start the R&D. But so it sometimes requires more than 20 years to have to bring the new technology into actual procurement cycle. And now it is reviewed, and some of the technology was used for, how to say, in very, in initial phase, like 5G, or so now just as our daily life, Japanese self-defense force try to use a new technology first and thinking how to use it second. So, through that process, some of the venture has interested in joining that sense. So, in coming maybe 3 or 4 years, you may find some change or some different about the technological application in defense procurement in Japanese side. Some of the change of that could be found. But now still, the phase of trial and error and introducing a new system, a new process. So I cannot provide a definite answer. Now we are changing. We will be changed. But I think I can just say MOD or self-defense force is try to change about that issue.
Okay, well, on that note, I want to thank our three panelists. It's really been a very rich conversation this morning. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank the Hudson Institute team for the public affairs team in particular, and the Japan Chair team for pulling the event together, and look forward to continuing the conversation with the distinguished gentlemen as events warrant in the future. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.